अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी वेलकम टू सिया कॉन्वर्सेशन। जैसे आपको पता है सिया
Thank you.
कॉन्वर्सेशन ऑल अबाउट इकोनॉमिक्स एंड education, various subjects that create our development, that create economic growth and development for Pakistan, that hopefully will take us into the future. तो मसला ये है कि हम लोग फ्यूचर में जाना नहीं चाहते हैं, हम तो पीछे जाना चाहते हैं। और ना हम तरक्की चाहते हैं, हम तो पीछे जाना चाहते हैं। या फिर हम मर के आगे जन्नत में जाना चाहते हैं। हमारा शौक यहाँ रहने का कोई नहीं है और ना यहाँ तरक्की करने का शौक है। तो इसके साथ मैं आज शुरू करता हूँ। हमारे आज के मेहमान समी मुस्तफ़ा साहब हैं। समी साहब एजुकेशन एंटरप्रेन्योर हैं। इन्होंने स्कूल्स खोले हैं, स्कूल्स चलाए हैं। ही इज़ वन ऑफ द बिग स्कूल एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इन कराची। आई डोंट थिंक इज कम नॉर्थ, अभी इनसे पूछ लेते हैं। ज़्यादातर कराची में रहे हैं, बट ही इज़ ऑल्सो बिग थिंकर ऑन स्कूलिंग। तो आज इनको लाने की वजह ये थी कि एजुकेशन हमारा बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है। जैसे आप सब जानते हैं, रोज़ हमारे माशाल्लाह बड़े बड़े गुरु, इवन मिफ्ता शिफ्ता कहते रहते हैं आउट ऑफ स्कूल चिल्ड्रन, आउट ऑफ स्कूल चिल्ड्रन। और बड़े उनके दिल में दर्द है कि आउट ऑफ स्कूल चिल्ड्रन बड़े हैं। तो और फिर बच्चों को पढ़ाना बहुत ज़रूरी है। तो समी साहब से पूछते हैं कि एजुकेशन के बारे में इनका क्या ख्याल है। तो वेलकम समी साहब। समी साहब
Thank
पहले
you.
बताइए व्हाट, पहले तो अपना छोटा सा खुलासा दे देना अपने एक्सपीरियंस का भी, ताकि हमारी ऑडियंस फेमिलियर हो जाए आपसे।
Um, I did my BA and MA from University of California in Santa Barbara.
हम्म।
Then I did my master's, second master's in from New York. Then I came here, taught at Karachi University for a year. And then I started the school in 1981. So we are now 45, 46-year old. And
हम्म।
I've been here since. I've been thinking about some of the educational problems, obviously like everybody else does. तो उस पर हम बात करेंगे आपके साथ कि ये
हम्म।
I see things from somewhat, as I told you, somewhat from a minority point of view. In fact, quite extreme minority point of view. And there's a bigger problem that is not being addressed. There's a superficial problems that are being addressed. For example, the issue is seriously an issue of out of school children. Yes, it is an issue. The problem is the children who are in school, what are they learning? That is a bigger problem.
हम्म।
And then what are we teaching them in school, generally speaking? इस पे कोई खास बहस हुई नहीं है। इस पे वो बहस हो रही है एआई पे, वो बहस हो रही है कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी वर्सेस local metric programs and so on and so forth. Yes, there are problems, all of it. I'll take you up on your earlier opening comments a little later, where you feel that we are not looking at future, we want to not do this and not do that. I don't share that at all. I think
Fair
we're quite a bit of future. Yes, bad governance is what is keeping us back. We all want to move.
enough.
Yes, our thinking pattern, I said, Nadeem, if you have a certain framework of thinking, so all the thinking develops in that. So we're thinking in very unilinear kind of a situation where we are only talking about this. I'll tell you what this, if I may, unless you have any questions. Um, I gave you my
Go ahead.
background, so we can
Go ahead.
start. So the issue here is, as I said, it is certainly an issue of bilingualism. The rich children study in English, the poor study in Urdu, or not even in Urdu. Sometimes, if they are from Balochi or Sindhi, even they are studying in Urdu. So there's a problem there. There's no similar curriculum for across the schools here. So there's a stratification happening because of the schooling as well. But that is one problem. Second, as I said earlier, that out of school children is certainly a problem. Generally, the view is that the out of school children don't go to school because they earn for the family. We have seen that over and over again that is not correct. Some of it may be correct. Children don't go to school because there's not much in happening in the school anyway, either in terms of enjoyment or in terms of intellectual challenges or in terms of learning something which will be of any use. So we have seen this all the time. And that's why the dropout rate hits hard at around class 5, class 6, because by that time they feel that, look, I think this is not happening. Now, we talked about it earlier about the AI. What is the role of AI? I think that we are putting the cart before the horse. AI, role of AI will be discussed, ought to be discussed later. The first issue is what are we teaching in a school, and what part of that can be done better with AI. And for example, again, hello, hello, hello.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
Sorry, you will be, I lost you somewhere.
No problem. Keep going.
So, for example, there are two, three issues that I see immediately. One, that our curriculum, by and large, the ethos of that curriculum is literally about 200-year old, and we haven't really changed very much. Now, just take any odd subject. Let's take maths, for example. Nobody is denying that maths is not important. We need to know plus, minus, division, percentage, and so on and so forth. But I'm not so sure if all children need to go through trigonometry and calculus and so on and so forth. Many children don't have the ability to learn maths, just like many students don't have the ability to paint, just like many students don't have ability to. So I think it's the specificity of aptitude, if I may, is not recognized by the school. The diversity of learning pace and level of interest is not specific, is not recognized by school in terms of its curriculum. So everybody has to learn the same maths, everybody has to learn the same geography, everybody has to learn the same thing. And I feel that unless that is sorted out, for example, I do think that, and I am working in a school and I see that all the time, that a lot of things that we teach here are either not relevant or completely relevant, completely relevant. And then we give them exams, and then we test them, and then we pass them, and we fail them, and all kinds of games that schools play. So then we have the exam issue. The problem with exam is that I'm not. Our role as teachers becomes that of a teacher and be a judge at the same time. That is not producing any happy result, because the children are in school to learn certain things that is being taught in the curriculum, not certain things that either interest them or will be relevant And I think that exam is actually, I think, has a very obviously not on all students, but in terms of a fair sizable section of the class, it has a very terrorizing effect, because they're worried about pass, fail, what will parents say, and this and that. And we hear from time to time that not frequently, children committed suicide because they didn't get the results and the parents were disappointed, and so on and so on and so forth. The issue is that when a child comes into class, whether it's class 4 or class 5 or class 6, 7, 8, when they enter the school, the teacher will know in about 4 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time, sorry, 8 weeks' time, the teacher will know the strength and weakness of the child. So if you were not a judge, and if you were a teacher,
Facilitator,
nurturer, teacher, whatever, then you would focus on the weaknesses of the child for the rest of 8 months that's left to you. But no, we don't do that. We let these things persist. And then we tell them at the end of the school year that, you failed and this and that. Either you repeat or you do this or you do that. And that has also given rise to another, I'm going to use a strong word, menace of tuitions. Because then the children are being subjected to A, the rigors of the school, and they're subjected to B, the rigors of the tuition center. C, the parents are paying double, once in school, one in tuition, and all sorts of things. I don't think it helps very much. So
and the children are paying double too, because शाम को खेलने का time कोई नहीं होता था. I remember खेलने का time भी बहुत जरूरी होता था. We used to play.
That's right. खेलने का time बहुत जरूरी होता है. So because we don't think that playing is a learning process. That's the problem. We think that learning is maths and English and history and geography, and that's it. We don't think that rowing, or we don't think that music, or we don't think that sports are an important part of education.
Right. So, Sami Sab, tell me one thing. Now, we've got ourselves stuck in this English education system. I shouldn't say English, not English, but a system that came out of the British public school or whatever, right? We've got stuck in that system, grammar school model. यहाँ के हमारे पास ये स्कूल होते हैं, बच्चे वहां जाते हैं, 7 दिन 5 दिन उनको 6 घंटे स्कूल में लगाने हैं, पीरियड्स हैं, और उन पीरियड्स में वो काम करना है, और फिर उसके बाद 10 सब्जेक्ट लेने हैं, फिर इम्तिहान देना है वगैरह. If this is the paradigm that we've got, and we got many exams, उसके बाद नौकरी मिलती है, उसके बाद आगे चलते हैं. But yet, मैं as an economist, what I look at it is, I look at rates of return to education. तो रेट्स ऑफ रिटर्न टू एजुकेशन, मेरा एक उस्ताद था बहुत, जिसकी बार बार बात करता हूँ, गैरी बेकर, जिसने एक काम किया था इकोनॉमिक्स ऑफ एजुकेशन पे, और वो कहता था कि लोग अपने अंदर इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, एजुकेशन इज एन इन्वेस्टमेंट. जो हमारे डू गुडर्स हैं, जो लिबरल आंटी हैं हमारी, वो सारी कहती नहीं हर बच्चे को स्कूल जाना चाहिए क्योंकि बड़ा अच्छा लगता है बच्चे स्कूल में. गैरी बेकर कहता था कि बच्चे को स्कूल जाना जरूरी नहीं है, उसको अपनी जिंदगी बनानी है, अपना करियर बनाना है. ही गोज टू स्कूल टू इन्वेस्ट हिमसेल्फ सो दैट हिज अर्निंग्स इन द फ्यूचर कैन improve. जब मैं रेट्स ऑफ रिटर्न टू एजुकेशन देखता हूँ तो पाकिस्तान में तो है ही नहीं तकरीबन. ये कहते लोअर लेवल्स ऑफ एजुकेशन, प्राइमरी पे तो बच्चा अभी अगर पास कर जाए तो वो ड्राइवर से ऊपर नहीं जा सकता, नौकरी लगता है बेचारा. तो उसकी तो सोशल मोबिलिटी कोई नहीं होती, ना कोई इकोनॉमिक मोबिलिटी होती है. जो बीए करता है, अगर उसको सरकारी नौकरी मिल जाए तो माशाल्लाह ठीक हो जाता है. सरकारी नौकरी ना मिले तो मैं तो क्लब में जब जाता हूँ, बैरों से कई दफा पूछता हूँ, देव गॉट अ बीए. इंजीनियर्स, मैं दुबई में मिला था, दे टैक्सी ड्राइवर्स. तो विदाउट रिटर्न्स टू एजुकेशन, हाउ कैन वी एक्सपेक्ट चिल्ड्रन टू गो टू स्कूल? और ये जो लिबरल मिथ है कि एवरी चाइल्ड मस्ट गो टू स्कूल एंड 50 million किड्स आउट ऑफ स्कूल, ओहो हो बड़ी मुसीबत पड़ गई. आई डोंट बाय दैट. आई थिंक these kids are better off not going to school because, quite frankly, schools are not offering them any return. Would you agree?
No, I don't actually. I don't. And I don't, I'll tell you
Good.
why.
Mm.
Let's take it up a bit of a micro slice from whatever you have said.
Right. Mm.
In the micro slice, let's take a class two child, which is
Mm.
7 years, 5 years,
Mm.
5, 6, 7, 8 years of age.
Mm.
There, the issue is not Naukri, the issue is not rates of return and so on and so forth. Yes, I think that if you're doing an MBA from LUMS or from IBA here, the rate of return, perhaps we can talk about that another time. I think the education is supposed to enlighten you with a number of things and make you a happy person and give you a happy childhood. In addition to learning some skills, which is language, which is numeracy, which is and so on and so forth.
Mm.
So in that, if I think you're looking at education in a, perhaps I'm hearing that it's mostly a school based exercise, and I'm saying no, it is not a school based exercise. School is one factor
Mm.
where the child socializes, the child works together as a team with the rest of the class. The child learns authority from the teacher and so on, and also explores his or her imagination, passion, and aptitude. When that happens, children do go to school. And I would not say that children should not go to school. I would say that all children should go to school, and school should be catering to the different needs. For example, if in class 9 and class 10, which is our metric system here, or O level, which is 10 and 11,
Mm. Mm.
if you taught them a vocation, which by the way, I'm going to be running a government school, which is a very large government school, took it last March or April. And in class 9 and class 10, this is a girls' school, we'll teach them computer skills, which we're already setting up. We will try to teach them some other, we can't teach them nursing, for example, but we can teach them teaching. So we will hopefully, at least 25% of the student body in class 9 or class 10 will be able to get a job either as a teacher or the computer operator or as a secretary or whatever, number one. Number two, from there, when that happens, children, even if they don't get a job, you know, or if they get a job which they're happy with, so then a BA and MA degree. For example, in my case, I studied architecture for 3.5 years and I switched, and I don't have any regret there at all. So rate of return, I've heard this before also. Rate of return I think maybe we can talk about that at a tertiary level, not at a primary level. I don't know about secondary, but not at a primary level.
But here, look at it this way. The way I would look at it as an economist, as I said, education is the kid is working hard to get into education. He has to put some knowledge in his head. He has to take some time off from other activities. और उसको लगाना है दिन में 5-6 घंटे मेहनत करने के लिए ग्रेड 2, 3, 4 पढ़ने के लिए या मैट्रिक करने के लिए और भी जरूरत है पढ़ने की और अगर मैट्रिक के बाद वो बहरा लगता है किसी किसी क्लब में और या किसी रेस्टोरेंट में उसको कोई फायदा नहीं होता तो क्वाइट फ्रैंकली उसको मैट्रिक करने का क्या फायदा हुआ तो ये भी तो हमें देखना है ना इट्स नॉट एज इफ कि हमने उसको बड़ा फेवर किया बढ़ा के उसने अपना टाइम दिया है अगर आप मुफ्त भी दें तो उसने अपना टाइम दिया है और उसने अपनी मेहनत दी है उसको मेहनत का रिटर्न कोई नहीं मिल रहा मेरा तो ख्याल है हर बंदे को मेहनत का रिटर्न मिलना चाहिए अगर मेहनत का रिटर्न नहीं मिल रहा तो फिर हम उसको क्यों पढ़ा रहे हैं तो मेरी एक दफ़ा ये एजुकेशन आंटियों से बात हुई थी जो बहुत सारी स्कूल चलाती हैं तो मैंने उन्हें यही कहा कि यू यू आर डूइंग इट बिकॉज यू वांट टू क्रिएट पीपल इन योर ओन इमेज आप चाहते हैं कि ये लोग हमारी तरह के बने हमारी तरह के क्लबेबल हों सब कुछ हो अच्छा कपड़ा पहनना तो अच्छा सब कुछ यार तो उसको क्या फायदा होगा उसका वो जब अच्छे कपड़े पहन लेगा और वो अंग्रेजी थोड़ी सीख लेगा और थोड़े तरीके सीख लेगा आप उसको सिंध क्लब में तो एंट्री नहीं देंगे तो फिर उसको क्या फायदा वो उसके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखे ना फ्रॉम योर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू अंडरस्टैंड यू वांट एनलाइटमेंट डज द किड वांट एनलाइटमेंट डज हिज फैमिली वांट एनलाइटमेंट वी हैव टू थिंक अबाउट दैट टू कि नहीं
Well, you are talking at a philosophical level.
ऑफ
Let's
कोर्स
take nurses, for example, in Aga Khan here, or I'm sure elsewhere in bigger cities and smaller cities and towns. Let's take an Aga Khan. They do an intermediate and then they do nursing for 3 years or something. I'm not so sure about that. They start, by the way, at more or less same salary as MBA graduate, mid-level, not the top ones. Top ones go to banks and so on and so forth. So I think the fact that he or she, and in most cases she, but also in quite a bit of he, can get a good job and a professional skill. Now you can say, well, he can't be a member of Sin Club, but that's not an issue. The issue is not that everybody doesn't have to be. I'm not a member of the Sin Club either. That's not an issue. The issue here is that if they feel that they have slight
प्रोग्रेस्ड इन लाइफ प्रोग्रेस्ड इन
progress, हाँ, vertical movement हुई है थोड़ी, progressed in life.
असल चीज ये वर्टिकल मूवमेंट
So
हुई है कि नहीं हुई है
let's say you're the person, since you go to Sin Club type of places, which I'm not so sure why you do that. If that chap who is now a bearer there is serving you, if he had not gone to school and stayed a bearer or stayed a waiter or stayed, what would be the difference?
नो डिफरेंस
Yeah.
he would
What
have
would
been better off not going to school he would have enjoyed his life
No,
and
no, I
been
don't think so.
happy
I don't. No, I don't think so, Nadeem. I don't think so. I think that they need to have some intellectual enjoyment as well, as long as they can afford it, as long as there's food on the table at night, and so on and so forth. And I'm seeing this across the board. My school has about uh, 350 staff, out of which 130, 140 are lower staff or support staff, we call them. They're all very happy. They now have a motorbike and this and that and so on and so forth. Now, I'm not saying that there's something to rejoice, because I go in a car, he goes on a motorbike, I live in a house with so on and so forth. There are differences. So there's no disagreement on the stratification, if you want to call it, of society through this route as well. But I think if you speak to most of them, they feel that the education has brought them somewhere, or has brought them to a platform from where they can take off, or has brought them opportunities where they can actually, given their limitations, by the way, given that it takes them there. That's my take on
अच्छा
the.
जी एक और तरफ अगर हम चलें आई हैव टॉक्ड टू अ लॉट ऑफ एम्प्लॉयर्स एज अ व्यू आई एम श्योर वो सब कहते हैं कि जो बच्चे आते हैं हमारे पास उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन बहुत कमजोर है एंड वी
Mhm.
ऑल सी स्टडीज असर वगैरह की जो स्टडीज आती हैं सब वो भी कहती हैं हमारी क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन बहुत कमजोर है नाउ आई टेक
Mhm.
योर पॉइंट आपने बड़ा अच्छा पॉइंट मेक किया है कि जी लोग डिफरेंट होते हैं और डिफरेंट क्वालिटीज होती हैं फॉर एग्जांपल Somebody is more inclined to math, somebody is more inclined to music, somebody is more inclined to art, वगैरह वगैरह. So we have to exploit those capabilities rather than जैसे मुझे पढ़ाया गया था, we were all forced to do one thing together and nothing more. And we were all trained to be civil servants and nothing else. तो क्या कहते हैं, अब आपकी जो बात है मैं मानता हूँ बिल्कुल कि बड़ी अच्छी बात है कि we should differentiate between skills. वो एक बंदा है जॉर्ज मेसन में प्रोफेसर, उसने बल्कि इस पे किताब भी लिखी है. उसने कहा वी आर ही इज ऑटिस्टिक, ही claims he's autistic, and he says कि in a sense we are all autistic because we're all very very different from each other. तो हमारी एजुकेशन का पेस भी डिफरेंट होना चाहिए. बल्कि वो उसने खान एकेडमी वाले में यही कहा था कि भाई फ्लिप द क्लासरूम सो दैट पीपल कैन लर्न एट डिफरेंट पेसेस. हमारी एजुकेशन बड़ी स्टैटिक एक किस्म की है, इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन. इसमें व्हाट आर द चेंजेस यू वुड रिकमेंड हमारी एजुकेशन सिस्टम में?
No, no, you are absolutely right. That is correct that the material we are getting now is not what we would have liked to see or not expect from where they are coming from, right? I mean, you can get a BBA from a reasonably middle class or second tier university. It's not good at all. I mean, I agree, and that should be the focus. I think that should be the focus. That where are we going wrong? And I'm saying to you, for example, if I may give you my own school example, we have very, very large program in rowing, for example. And our children go to rowing and this and that. They go abroad, they do in Karachi. Karachi Boat Club does it. And we have very strong department of music. We have 12 faculty members in music. For a small school, that's a very large number. We have our own auditorium. We have 5 or 6 classrooms dedicated to that. And by the way, the foreign universities, now I can only speak for American universities, they give scholarships on drawing, they give scholarships on music. 3 of our children in the last 20 years, and it's not a very large number, one went on music, two went on drawing, and one went on debating. Yes, they had to have a certain base academic achievement, but basically it is now being recognized that you let them. Now it's really a drop in the ocean. I understand that completely, and that's why I'm saying the debate should be where are we going wrong in the school. So the issue is not whether we should have metric or whether we should have O level or whether we should have this or that or whether we should have AI. Yes, you should have AI. Perhaps if I said no, I don't believe in AI. Or let's say modern technology. I think our airlines will collapse, our banks will collapse, and so on and so forth. I'm not so sure if we need to. I would prefer that children get closer to nature, animals, people, interpersonal, other interpersonal skills, because that's what they learn in school. And I think generally, as I said, if you were to do, and perhaps you should do it, all these club fellows that you're talking about, the waiters and so on and so forth, what would their life have been? Just out of anecdotes, what would their life would have been if they had they not gone to school? So I feel that school is a privilege, certainly. School must be relevant. Now, the point that what you're calling rate of return, I'm calling it relevance. So if the school is not, for example, my parents, let's say, put a lot of money into it. I decided to become a musician, and I'm not earning as much as you are earning, or whatever. I mean, I could have. I think it's perfectly all right. That recognition has not come. So while you were supposed to be a civil servant, I'm sorry that you couldn't become one, or did you? Uh, my father wanted me to be a doctor because he was a doctor himself. And I'm very sorry for him that his son didn't become a doctor. So these things have gone now. Today, in my school, and you're talking about a high-end school, children are not interested in medicine as much as they were 20 years ago. They want to be journalists. They want to be in music. They want to have startups and so on, so on and so forth. So the world has changed considerably because what you talked about, the British inheritance of the curriculum, that was designed to produce babus for the Raj. And so you had to be good in maths and good in this and good in that. Your personal interest didn't matter because I needed somebody who can type, who can write a proper English and run the Raj. Now that has changed, and this has particularly changed in the last 20 years, particularly. It was changing very, very slowly. I see my students, very few of them are going into what we call conventional issues, whether doctor or engineer or civil servants or army and this, that. Very few are going there. And this is, by the way, a worldwide phenomenon. Not that I have done any study, and just anecdotes from here and there that,
Fair point.
yeah.
नहीं तो फिर ये बताइए ना, what do we do about the education system? Is the education system keeping up with the times, or is the
No, they're
education
not.
system
No,
lagging?
no, they're
तो
not.
फिर what changes would you recommend? आप क्या recommend करेंगे?
नहीं,
Supposing you're in charge of reform, क्या recommend करेंगे?
नहीं, पहले तो रिकमेंड ये करूंगा कि नॉन इश्यूज से आप हट जाएं प्लीज। ठीक है, नॉन इश्यूज ये हैं कि सिंगल करिकुलम होना चाहिए, ऐसे ऐसे कंप्लीट नॉन इशू। नाउ फिलोसॉफिकली यस इट इज एन इशू, बट वी टॉक अबाउट सर्टेन कॉन्टेक्स्ट। द कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज नेक्स्ट 20 years, 30 years, 40 years। अब आप सिंगल करिकुलम कर रहे हैं जो यहाँ पर, दैट वाज एंड लॉट ऑफ पीपल जंप्ड ऑन द बैंड वैगन। वो जो सिंधी बैठा है बेचारा, वो सिंगल करिकुलम में क्या उर्दू में पढ़ेगा वो, या इंग्लिश में पढ़ेगा, या सिंधी में पढ़ेगा? ठीक है, अब आप किस जबान में करेंगे करिकुलम का? इशू ही नहीं था ये। दिस इज नॉट एन इशू। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यहाँ सवाल उठता है कि इंस्टेड ऑफ एग्जाम्स वी शुड हैव मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस। ठीक है, इट्स नॉट एन इशू, बिकॉज इफ यू आस्किंग रबिश, then rubbish can come through, you can answer rubbish through MCQs, you can answer rubbish through writing or through, so the issue वो नहीं है। issue ये है कि आप पहले पता करें कि what is it that the child needs. We are not able to put ourselves into their heads as to what they need. Now, for example, सिंध टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड में, जो कि मैंने थोड़ा सा देखा है कि किताबें इनकी अगर आप किताब देखें, इट विल बी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टू सी वेयर दे गोइंग रॉन्ग। ठीक है, नाउ क्लास 1 के बच्चे की एक उर्दू किताब है, उसमें पहला पहला चैप्टर है हमद, फिर है इसमें हमारे प्यारे कायद, फिर है पाकिस्तान, फिर फना, फिर फना, फिर फना। I think they're all very important issues. I'm not undermining them at all. The problem is that that 5-year-old, he doesn't know Qaidism, kaun the kaun the. There's plenty of time for him to find out in a more meaningful way. Now, what happens in the West? In the West, they're talking about teaching children language and stuff through animals, through attic mein kya chupa hua tha, through fiction, and they're fantastic books. The fantastic books children learn there. The other problem, Nadeem, is that children also learn in the larger socio-cultural political environment. So, and I'm not deviating from here, but you have hundreds of think tanks in America, and nobody's able to understand or say what's going on in the world. The things are very clear. Things are very, very clear what's going on here in some ways, but they have to camouflage. So I think that culture, that environment in which you allow people to think freely and express freely, it contributes to education. And I'll give you an example. If I have in school, if I give my children workshops or lectures on not to litter outside, in the car, you can have as many as you want, as fun as you want. But this child goes home with a father or a mother or a driver, and sees that उन्होंने window खोली और उन्होंने कचरा बाहर डाल दिया उन्होंने। ठीक है, what do you learn? Do you learn from the lecture, or do you learn from what you're seeing every day in front of you? That's what I meant by larger socio-political culture inputs. That is missing here, and that is not in our control. That's something far beyond. What is in our control? We can very easily change, the content of what we teach for a very long time, till class 9, till class 10, we can teach. The other myth is teacher training. This is a very serious problem, because you keep talking about teacher training. You're training teacher to teach what is not relevant, perhaps I'm exaggerating it, to children. There's a gentleman who was a very important man in Lums, and I have a very high regard for him. He just turned 100, by the way. He came to me here and he says, I have this institute in Lahore. It doesn't function. And I said, would you come and look at it? So I said, it'll be a very great honor for me. It was very kind. I went there, saw there, and one of your friends was the director of that institute. Why is it's not running? Why is it not having any impact? And by the way, we have had our share of Teachers Resource Center in Karachi and Notre Dame College of Education in Karachi. Now we have IED, Institute of Education Development for Haque Khan. They have had absolutely no impact on the culture of learning. Absolutely no impact. Because you're teaching them wrong material, how to teach well. Well, you can do that. You can teach a teacher how to teach well a wrong material. And I'm saying wrong is a strong word, but let's say not terribly relevant material. So the first question to ask is to identify these two or three things. As I said, what we teach, and it's a very simple thing, by the way. It is not a very complicated thing at all. It does not include, it does not involve a lot of money. It is not, it just requires कि अपना काबा सही कर लें आप बस थोड़ा इधर तक जगह इधर मुड़ जाए खाली इतनी जरूरत होती है. So when we don't have exam till class 9, no exams at all. And we are still the top 3 or 4 schools with our O-level results. It didn't take us any money at all. It just was a matter of decision that, look, let's check them once a week or once 2 times in a month, small 10-minute quiz and stuff like that, and figure out what they're doing. It has worked. It has done. Now it is almost 20th year, 21st year that we are.
So have no exams till class 9.
Till class 9. And
No
by the way,
exams.
no exams.
How do children get promoted from one class to another?
Because we know they have two small tests every month, and that's graded, and they do just fine. And if we feel that the child is not ready, let's say in August, September, October, is not ready for next class, we should intervene at that time, rather than giving him a report card in May saying that you failed. And we do intervene, not always to the best of our ability and not always to the best of our satisfaction, but we do that. So no child fails here, and all they do extremely well in O-level exams. And by the way, the O-level exam itself is something to be discussed, because I'm not so sure what it does, because for 3 years during COVID, we had no O-level exams. They were getting admission into A-level and from A-level into university on past 3 years transcripts and the principal's recommendation. Now, you're right that can be prejudiced, and there can be some favoritism in there. But so is your O-level exam, because it's simply taught you how to memorize and how to regurgitate and reproduce. It does not indicate that what you have learned. So we are doing fine in terms of, we have an enormous diversity of curriculum where academics is only one part of it.
बिल्कुल ठीक. तो just
Yeah, I don't know if it's happening at your end, because the voice is, you have lost your voice again. Nadeem, I've lost you.
sorry, I've got a small problem in place. मेरा वो check गुम गया, so that's why I had to take that call. Apologies. So let's move ahead. देखिए जी, I fully take your point, and it's a very innovative thing जो आपने बताया कि आप क्या कहते हैं 9th तक एग्जाम नहीं करते. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. फिनलैंड में आपने सुना होगा उन्होंने एग्जाम्स ही अबॉलिश कर दिए हैं, उन्होंने ग्रेड्स ही अबॉलिश कर दिए हैं. एंड आपने सुना होगा कि many corporations are now saying we don't need a university degree. So I think we've got excessive credentialism. I just finished a study on universities. तो मैं देख रहा हूँ कि बच्चे, मतलब खैर आई यूज्ड टू बी वाइस चांसलर ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटी टू, मैंने देखा है कि there's a huge grade inflation, degree inflation going on in this country. पहले होते थे लोग बीए, अब वो आते हैं एमफिल भी है, फिर एमफिल के बाद पीएचडी भी है, फिर दूसरी पीएचडी भी है, फिर there's a plethora of degrees they're collecting, and they're also collecting a plethora of papers. अताउर रहमान को अल्लाह बख्शे कभी, कि अताउर रहमान साहब ने जो बेड़ा गर्क किया है कि सबको लगा दिए पर्चों की वो पेपर्स लिखने की उस पे मिल पे, and those papers are turning out to be turning out to be junk. I review a lot of economics papers all the time, and I must confess that there's a huge amount of junk coming out of our universities, and that is totally misleading people, especially in the reading of social sciences. तो ये भी बहुत बड़ा मसला है. अब मसला जो मुझे नहीं समझ आती, which we should think about, and I think that's why I really wanted a conversation with you, कि how do we begin to reimagine our education? I agree with you wholeheartedly. एग्जाम पे emphasis कम रखें. पर दूसरी चीज ये है कि ये टेक्स्ट बुक्स भी जो है हमारी, आई डोंट थिंक डू वी नीड द टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड. मैंने तो लिखा था पंजाब टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड पे इसको अबॉलिश कर दो. तो आई डोंट नो व्हाट यू फील अबाउट इट. डू वी नीड दीज टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड्स? आर दे परफॉर्मिंग अ यूजफुल फंक्शन, और दे जस्ट anachronism hanging over from Bhutto?
देखिए ये आपने जिन साहब का नाम लिया उनको मैं बहुत अच्छे से जानता था. वो बहुत ही फजूल आदमी थे, बहुत ही. वो हमारे से कई मुलाकात हुई एज ए मिनिस्टर. ही वाज माय नेबर आल्सो बाय द वे हियर. बट अब उनको अल्लाह क्या बख्शेगा नहीं, मुझे नहीं पता. I think that you should do, since you are interested in this, you should do a study के class 1 और class 2 में क्या पढ़ना चाहिए as a research. Specifically, which books, what program, what this, what that, and how should they be moving from 1 to 2 and to 3. It just that will be a more micro level study, which will answer some, because we are still talking at a very superficial level here, general level, not superficial, pardon me, in a very general level here. And sometimes general levels are good to get the larger picture, but eventually you have to get into the nuts and bolts of it, क्या करना है इसके अंदर. I don't think it's a terribly difficult thing to do at all. Now, I don't want to be. Einstein had once said, and I quote this in my school all the time: imagination is more important than knowledge. What is he saying? What is he saying? And nobody has paid attention to that, by the way. I think he's saying something very important. And he's saying that, look, get them away from grades and books and this and that, and charge their imagination. And how should we charge their imagination? Maybe we need books. What kind of books? I agree with you that we can abolish grades. I would not have exam till class 11, but I have to do it till class 9, because when they go for A level, the admission is done before the O level results are out, and they need a 3-year transcript. So I'm doing it purely as a nonsensical exercise. It's nonsensical because I don't want our children to be at a disadvantage. So I think that this kind of a study would be very useful. And then we should promote that. And since I have a lab here in my school, we can say, look, we have tried in this X number of schools and it has worked. And these are the results. And it won't take long. You're not talking about 20-year study. You're talking about maybe 3-year study or a 2-year study. So I completely agree with you. But these are the problems which I don't think requires PhD.
But देखिए एक और भी तो चीज है. For example, there's a friend of mine who's very hot on this subject. वो कहता है multi-grade teaching क्यों नहीं हम करते? Why do we separate kids into these classes, artificial classes, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8? And some kids are really sharp. They can jump grades very quickly. फिर हमको jump भी करा देते हैं, नहीं भी कराते हैं. It's a very arbitrary, random system. And you are supposed to move according to your age. Age 6 में ये होगा, age 7 में ये होगा, age 8 में ये होगा. तो आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं. But the key question is, what do you think? Young बच्चे को, 5-6 साल के बच्चे को क्या उसकी nurturing चाहिए? Do we force him to read books? Do we force him to memorize maths? Do we force him to do various things? या क्या करें उसको? किस चीज में हमें उसको मोटिवेट करना है? Eventually, और I think teaching is all about motivation. हम उसको मोटिवेट कर लें तो we succeeded. अगर मोटिवेट नहीं करते तो we failed. अगर रट्टे लगवा रहे तो we failed. तो उसको किस चीज में मोटिवेट करना चाहिए?
देखिए, again, an anecdote from history. When Maria Montessori started her Bambino del Sol, whatever it was called, at that time, children from low working class were given sweets and candies to come to school. She changed all that. She changed the furniture. She made them lower. She told them to be autonomous and they do whatever they wanted to do. Obviously, it was a more structured thing than I'm describing. And she said that nobody was interested in candies and sweets, and they were motivated. So I think that your friend who's saying that let's do away this with this, that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that. The issue is that then we're talking in some theoretical terms and in some bit of an abstraction there. Maybe correct. A bit of an abstraction there. I think that we can start looking at some concrete things as a starting point,
mm,
and then we can go. There's no end to it. I mean, the only place that I know which is doing some experiment on this is Finland. I don't know too much about Finland, but from whatever I've heard and read, they're experimenting on these things. They're challenging very basic assumptions that we work on, and
mm,
I think that is important to challenge basic assumptions that.
mm,
What should they be reading? What is motivating them? So I think you are right. It is motivation. I would add to that imagination. That when you have motivation and imagination, they'll do a lot of things. They may not be able to fall fit in. They may not be able to fit into your pattern of the schooling that you have designed.
mm,
But that's your problem. That's not
mm,
the child's problem. So I
mm,
think we need to learn from what does the child want. And by the way, children are generally quite responsible. They are not. It's not a. They don't create an anarchic environment by being left alone to themselves. Uh, we unfortunately work in a very limited environment here, and I think
mm,
some of these kind of studies would be very useful to say that this works and this works for sure. It works. And if I'm
mm,
working in the government school, and if I take it there as well, then I can show that even in the high end and the low end schools, it both works, and it will. We're doing that, and I think so. So I think when I said to you, the starting point is to back up the known issues that we have. And I said one is this teaching problem, teachers training, teachers training, teachers training.
mm,
I hear it all the
mm,
time, and I'm saying why the institute in Lahore, Ali Institute to be specific, and Teachers Resource Center in Karachi.
mm,
Why have they had not had any? Why was this discussion that you and I are having not brought up in a workshop there, or and say where will you go from here? Because it's
mm,
not it is not on the agenda, and I think till it is on the agenda, we can go on and on about
mm, mm.
teachers training, and
नहीं
we
पर
can.
चले अब हमें कोई स्पेसिफिक बताए ना चीजें उस पर एक तो आपसे समझ आ गई कि जी एग्जाम पे कम एम्फोसिस होना चाहिए स्टूडेंट्स को मोटिवेशन बेहतर होनी चाहिए एंड दैट
Mhm.
वी शुड ट्राई एंड थिंक ऑफ करिकुलम्स दैट आर मच मोर हाउ शुड आई से फ्लूइड और मोर क्या कहते
Flexible,
हैं flexible
flexible. Yeah,
or accommodative of
yeah.
the heterogeneity that exists in individuals. I mean, individual heterogeneity is the most important thing that distinguishes us humans. It's my heterogeneity that allows the cell phone to recognize my face, right? So, although given that my face is so different from everybody else, my inner must be very different from everybody else too. So we must try and kind of garner the education to each individual's particular strengths. और हर बंदे की कोई ना कोई स्ट्रेंथ होती है बिल्कुल ठीक है पर थोड़ा स्पेसिफिकली बताइए कि हम क्या what how should we reimagine our education system? We've got tons of education institutions. अली इंस्टीट्यूट की आपने बात की यहाँ एक पाई भी है पाकिस्तान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एजुकेशन उससे भी मैं बात कर रहा हूँ यहाँ डायरेक्टर ऑफ एजुकेशन बहुत हैं देर आर लम्ब ने इतना बड़ा एजुकेशन का वो स्कूल बनाया हुआ है आगा खान ने बनाया हुआ है वी गॉट टन्स ऑफ एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस बट येट व्हेन आई लुक एट देम मुझे नजर कुछ नहीं आता दैट आई कैन हैंग माय हैट ऑन कि ये कोई नई चीज निकल रही है
Why do you think?
मे बी वी आर इंटेलेक्चुअली बैरन
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. You can say that, I suppose, in some ways. So there is a mental block here somewhere, and we're not being able to go past that. It is very much like saying that women could not vote in England, for example, for till as recently as 100 years ago, right? It's a mental block that women can't vote, or the slaves can't be equal, or the natives can't be the same as the white ruler. These are mental blocks, and it's simply a matter of mental blocks that we need to remove. And it is not very difficult at all. It is not difficult at all. If even if half a dozen people serious minded.
नहीं पर मेंटल ब्लॉक्स असाइड ये बताइए ना लेट्स मूव अहेड लिटिल बिट कि फॉर एग्जांपल लोग बड़े कहते हैं क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट आई वेंट टू द ये ये एम्प्लॉयर्स पीपल लकी नेस्ले बड़े बड़े एम्प्लॉयर्स छोटे भी लाइक रॉयल फैंस ये वो मैं सबसे बात की मैंने कहा आपको क्या चाहिए वो कहते हैं हमें क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग चाहिए वो कहते हैं हमें इमेजिनेशन चाहिए वो हमें कहते हैं सॉफ्ट स्किल्स चाहिए वो कहते हैं हमें हैंड्स ऑन एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए विद मशीन्स एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा जो हमारी चीज़ें हैं And we need people who can dirty their hands and get things done very quickly. And problem solving is very important. Now, I don't see that when in my schooling, and I was lucky enough to go to some very good schools, these problems were never addressed. I was never taught these things. Are we teaching these things to kids today? Should we be teaching these kids or should we not? Because we are too focused on content. Are we too focused on content?
Yes, I think so. I think we're too focused on, I will again use material which is neither child specific, because the specificity has to be recognized. The diversity has to be recognized. And you can, all put it all together in a basket. Also, it's not a problem. You can put them in a basket, but as long as you know that there are many oranges and many apples and many this, otherwise you think everything looks like oranges to you. So you ask me a specific question, let's say a 5-year-old, for example, right? There are ways of teaching. Yes, we should know maths, because I think that I'm not a particularly big fan of maths, but I was very good as a student, but it was all that I never understood. Now today, I've been in 45 years of CS here, I've never used a T of trigonometry or C of calculus or A of algebra at all. At all. Now, was that a waste of time? I don't know about that, but that's it's gone now. And I'm saying that yes, you can do that. If Nadeem wants to study engineering after doing his O level, he can do maths 101 and start from there. That's not a problem. But why should I put this 12, 13, 14-year-old who's interested in music or interested in sports through trigonometry and algebra and calculus, which is absolutely abstract to the core? I mean, it's the worst scenario. Then we have other subjects which is politically not, which is politically imposed on us, and it has no meaning at all. That we do that also. Look, I don't mind certain impositions. The problem here is that impositions take almost 90% of your space. 10% is, if you're a liberal school or a good school, 10% of the space is given to your specificities. That is the problem. So if it's 10% imposed, I have no issues with that at all. But 90% we have, and the child can struggle with that. So if you're looking at it, there are a number of things that you can do. Even if for the time being, we're not removing the textbooks, can the textbooks change?
Sorry, go ahead.
Can the textbook be different? Can they have stories which resonate with the child's imagination? That is the first problem. We don't have textbooks which resonate with the children's imagination.
But let me be the devil's advocate. Why do we need textbooks anymore?
No, I think
with AI here, do I need textbooks anymore? I can ask the AI a question and it'll give me adequate material to figure out things.
Yeah, but then you see, your assumption here is that you're looking for an answer. My comment to that is, no, I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just looking for some delightful situation to read about the dog that did this.
वो AI बच्चे के लिए कर देगी. देखिए ना, अब मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि आप मुझे बताइए, जो सिंध टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड है या पंजाब टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड है, वहाँ जो लोग बैठे हुए हैं, I'm sure आप मेरे से ज़्यादा उनको मिलते होंगे. But when I look at their faces, I really worry. Are these guys going to teach our children this stuff? I mean, quite frankly, in fact, I'd go further. As I said, I went to a number of universities. I met the professors. And honestly, it sent a chill down my spine. So, ये भी तो एक मसला आ गया ना? Are we getting the right people to teach? I found this, for example, Sami, let me tell you. I found an adverse selection problem in education. What we are doing is, और ये मेरे ज़माने से भी है, अब ज़्यादा इंटेंसिफाई हो गया. I thought it would improve, but it's gotten worse. वो था कि जो सबसे अच्छे बच्चे हैं वो चले जाते हैं सिविल सर्विस में या मेडिसिन में या इंजीनियरिंग में चले जाते हैं. वो ठीक है, बड़ी अच्छी बात है, चले जाते हैं. उसके बाद जो बच्चे रह जाते हैं वो कोशिश करते हैं कहीं नौकरी शौकरी मिल जाए, चले जाते हैं. जो बच्चे रह जाते हैं वो एमफिल में चले जाते हैं. वो वहां से भी जो निकल जाते हैं, जो रह जाते हैं वो पीएचडी में चले जाते हैं. सो बेसिकली दुनिया में डिफरेंट मेथड ऑफ सिलेक्शन. दुनिया में द बेस्ट पीपल गो इनटू एजुकेशन. Here we've got the worst people going to education. Is that a problem?
Would you like to be the student of Samuel Huntington?
Of what, sorry? Samuel Huntington?
Yeah, would you like to be his student?
Of course.
God forbid if I were. God forbid if I were.
Why? Why?
Right, because he neither has the courage to speak out. He is quite happy to play footsie with the establishment, clash of civilization and all that kind of situation. The problem
Hmm.
is, you're right that Samuel Huntington has some base redeeming factor. I agree with you.
Hmm. See,
Your
I don't. I think you got a sort of conspiracy theory about I think Huntington was a capable individual, professor, and he did lay the foundations of many things. I may not agree with them, but they're there and they have to be dealt with. Same thing, for example, अब फाइन ये ले ले उसको क्या नाम है Oppenheimer को he made the nuclear bomb. A sad event should not have happened, etc., etc. He also regretted it, but it's a great achievement and he did something right. So I think हमें भी तो ये चाहिए कि हमारे पास बंदे वो create हों. For example, another thing that I would put to you, we don't have any academic heroes like the rest of the world. We have no academic heroes. That's also a problem. And why don't we have academic heroes?
I don't know what you mean by academic heroes because I have quite a
Like
few.
like Einstein, Feynman, ये जो लोग हैं, हमारा एक था सलाम, उसको हमने बाहर निकाल दिया.
ठीक है ना?
दूसरा थोड़ा बहुत मेरे सब्जेक्ट में था, महबूब उल्लाह को, उसको भी हमने मार के निकाल दिया. ठीक
ठीक
है.
है,
तो
ठीक है।
हमारे पास
तो
तो कोई है ही नहीं.
आपने भी तो वहां अमेरिका से लोगों को निकाला है ना, मार मार करके कुछ लोगों को।
किधर से? किधर से?
वैसे आपने भी निकाला है, अमेरिका से आपने भी कुछ लोगों को मार मार के निकाला है कि वो तो ये कम्युनिस्ट है तो सोशलिस्ट है तो फला है तो
हाँ,
फला
वो
है,
किया,
आपने भी
बिल्कुल
निकाला
किया,
है। सो
बिल्कुल सही
सॉरी,
कह रहे हैं.
सो आई ओनली नो, आई एम श्योर दिस हैपनिंग इन फ्रांस एंड हैपनिंग इन इंग्लैंड एवरीवेयर, राइट? I agree with you. देखो, Nadeem, don't misunderstand me. If I were to
हम्म.
say Samuel Huntington and my teacher in Qaizam University or Habib University is the same, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a bigger problem here
हम्म.
that these people come not by AI or this and that. They come from a certain number of factors. One is there has to be an environment of freedom of speech, and I'm not using it in a political sense or in a rhetorical sense. I actually mean that you and I in this podcast should be able to talk whatever we want, but we are not. I said to you that certain government subjects have been imposed on us. I couldn't take the name, right? Why? So that's fine. You understood it. I understood it. The issue here is that there is a problem. And I think if you're going to take like fraud, in the last half an hour, we have
हम्म.
discussed 5 or 6 things. And I think that the smarter thing would be to take up one thing and move on to just the second one and third one. So when I'm saying that there's a serious problem with teacher education,
हम्म.
let's talk about that because that is a sacrosanct subject that yes,
But
it is.
I step back a little. I think there's a much bigger problem with teacher selection. एजुकेशन तो बाद में आती है, पहले सिलेक्शन. फॉर एग्जांपल अ मेथड ऑफ टीचर सिलेक्शन, जो ये आसिम ख्वाजा वगैरह ने जो लीप स्टडी की थी, उसमें यही वो कह रहे हैं ना कि द टीचर्स दैट आर सिलेक्टेड, आई मीन पब्लिक सेक्टर टीचर्स फॉर एग्जांपल, are paid more than private sector teachers.
That's
Yet the
correct.
public sector teachers are performing worse than the private sector teachers because the public sector teachers are selected on the basis of maybe some political choice or some other mechanism कि जी वो किसी का रिश्तेदार था या कुछ, और वो आ जाता है और वो फिर बैठ जाता है वहाँ, and he's there forever. He can't be fired. Private sector teachers are paid too little, and private sector teachers जो हैं, they mostly tend to be part-time workers. The profession of full-time teaching is not that, but it's still at the bottom of the pyramid. टीचर का करियर क्या है, कहाँ तक जाता है टीचर का करियर? दीज आर क्वेश्चंस दैट आल्सो नीड टू बी ब्रॉट अबाउट. कि अगर टीचर फॉर एग्जांपल, जो यूनिवर्सिटी की स्टडी देख रहा था, मोस्ट women either stayed out of the workforce or they said we do teaching, but हम teaching करते हैं because it's a safe subject, and some of them are saying we are teaching at 10,000 15,000 rupees a month. Because quite frankly उनकी मार्केट और कोई नहीं है. तो अगर ये हो तो I think selection itself is an issue. Are we getting the best people to come into teaching or not?
Okay, I think you are talking in fair amount of generalities, and
Of
you
course,
never.
of course.
I think there should be a difference between the world in primary section and secondary and tertiary are very, very different worlds.
Mhm.
When I did my obviously graduate school studies abroad, and I came here
Mm.
and I taught at Karachi University. I had no problem. I just walked into from one, and even in Santa Barbara or in New York, I was a teaching assistant. I had no problem. When I came here and I wanted to start the school, I didn't know what is involved in primary level, class 1, class 2, class 3. So fortunately, my friend Stella Jaffrey was the headmistress in grammar school, and she said, you come and sit here and so on and so forth. The issue is, uh, these are not quite cliches. There's some truth in it, but they become cliches. For example, there are government school teachers. You're absolutely right. They get more than private schools. I don't know of any private school. And again, when you say private school, I think there's a very big difference between CAS and a school in Orangi. There are huge difference. They are two different
नहीं,
worlds.
मैं तो आपको स्टडी कोट कर रहा हूँ.
नहीं
लीड्स
नहीं, आप
की
स्टडी
स्टडी है
कोड कर
ना.
नहीं नहीं, आप स्टडी कोड कर
दैट्स बेस्ड ऑन अ वेरी लार्ज सर्वे. उन्होंने सर्वे
That
करके
may
ये
be
किया
so.
था.
That may be so.
हम्म,
So in the top end, in the middle tier, nobody gets 10,000, 15,000 rupees a study. I don't know who has done the study where. Number one. Number two, the average salary in private schools, even if they are mid-level, is 40, 50,000 rupees, by the way. In my school, it's 100 plus and so on and so forth. We have 225, 230 teachers, out of which how many do you think are trained teachers, roughly? What's your guess?
No idea.
Okay, zero.
Hmm.
Okay, and we still produce the best result. So some of them have the wherewithals and potential to do the right things. I would imagine, if we are doing the right things. And so we don't have a problem with recruitment of trained teachers. And I'm not interested in because I was a founder of Teachers Resource Center here, by the way, and I resigned after 2.5 years. I said, listen, no way of training. We have to do something else. So it'll be interesting to see where teachers training have failed to have an impact. Now imagine Ali Institute is a very, very profound, nice, substantially funded institution. It should not be struggling for anything. Teachers Resource Center in Karachi was funded by the Aga Khan. Could not have in the last, it was started in 86, so that's 14 years there and 25, 40 years ago. It's nowhere today. I think that then number one, number two, what should be the curriculum in the primary? That's and then we can move on to finishing grades. It's not a problem. Look, I mean, if we could collectively find a way of assessing children by watching them, by giving them, playing with them, and so on and so forth, then what would be the? It will be nothing better than not to have any grade. So in my school again, till class 4, we have no grades. In 5 and 6, we have to do that because that's required. They need to transfer in class 6. We have no grades. We just give them what we call portfolio. So these things are possible. These things are possible, and some few of them, a few of us are experimenting with these things. Unfortunately, I don't have much time, so I'll have to do it very quickly. No, I don't mean time in this podcast, but you were not particularly polite when you said "Kabhi to main jawan hu." वो हमने कहा कि you're not a good man to throw salt at the wound. कुछ नहीं कर सकते तो कम से कम ये तो ना कहो ना कम से कम. So I don't have much time. So I think that we are, interestingly enough, interestingly enough, subjective as it sounds, the education sector, there's a lot of obvious things that can be changed right now. Maybe not give you a blueprint of what it should be like, but some things have to be gotten rid of.
Apologies. Please बताइए. What are the specific changes you'd like? Because we're coming to the end of the show.
No. I just said to you, I think that first of all, the education has to be diversified, the curriculum.
Fair
We call
point.
it program of studies, in which there are our children who get Distinguished Student Award are not those who have done well in academics, by the way.
Right.
It's 3 or 4 factors. They may be champions in drawing, they may be in sports, they may be singing, or combination of these things. So we don't have positions in the class either. You don't come first, second, third in the school either. And I don't think we are the only one. I think a number of schools are experimenting with it. I'm not familiar personally, but so all of that, some of this has to be shed. And you can only shed by moving in a certain concrete direction rather than hypothesizing or building a theory of it and not being able not being able to translate it into on the ground.
बिल्कुल ठीक. ठीक है जी. Thank you very much, Sami Saab. Had a
नहीं
great
Nadeem?
conversation. Inshallah, we'll do it again. Lots more
Amen.
to talk about, but I think I've don't want to test the patience of my viewers. So we'll do it again. But thank you very much. Thanks for being a pioneer in education. Thanks for raising some fun.
Not at all. You take care. We'll talk again.
All the best. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you. Thank you.